Okay, we're back. We're going to jump right into our next panel. I'm really excited about this panel. It kind of feeds off of the panel we had before. But this time we're going to hear from mentors in our network who are, have started their career and have been successful, but are at maybe the earlier years of their career rather than the later years, and how they successfully navigated getting into a great mid-level career position. My job is to just turn it over to Sreytom Tim, who is going to moderate the panel. Sreytom, I think most of you know her. She's a recent graduate from the University of Minnesota. She has a degree in family social science and a minor in management. And she's been interning here in the US with Worldview Studio as a research assistant. Sreytom, I'll let you take it from here.
Hello again, everyone. Thank you, Bob, for the introductions. Yeah, many of you have known me already, so I won't say any more. But yeah, I'm still in Minnesota currently doing my internship, and I'm looking forward to move back to my home country though. For our session today is I'm gonna just move right into our session about transition from college to a change agent careers. And today it's my honor to be a moderator, and also we really have three amazing panelists, including Anna Blue, Whitney James, and Christine Thinn. They're really amazing. I stalked them on social media a little bit. I'm gonna move right into our first question. So panelists, why don't you tell us briefly about yourself and your career transitioning, and also where did you go to school and how did you go from college to the career that you are currently in? Anybody can go first for this one.
I can start. I think I might be first alphabetically anyway, so maybe that makes sense. Hi guys, it's nice to meet you. I'm Anna. So I'm really excited to be here today, and excited to hopefully share some useful advice with you. I actually currently work for the company Facebook. I work in crisis management for the company. It's, as you may know, not been a great time for crisis management for Facebook after this past week. So apologies if I'm a little bit scatterbrained right now. Before coming to Facebook, I actually started in a totally different arena. I went to school at Stanford and I studied international relations. I was really keen when I arrived at Stanford on learning more about public service, studying international politics, and eventually working for the government. So as you can imagine, I'm in a very different place now than I thought I would be. And I just want to take this moment to acknowledge what I hope will be a theme throughout the rest of the panel, which is that careers are not meant to be static. They should always be dynamic. And I hope you'll always stay open to different opportunities and to change in your career, because there's no one direct path to where you want to go. And I think that opens a lot of different doors. So I was one of very few fortunate people in the sense that I went into college knowing what I wanted to study. I was lucky to intern for the US State Department and for United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees while I was there. In those positions, I became really curious about how technology is disrupting democracy, how it's disrupting human rights. And so I decided after graduating that I wanted to work in the private sector. I'll get into this later because I think we have some great questions about rejection and what that process is like, but I did not secure a job in the private sector after graduating. And I actually ended up going through a pretty tumultuous career shift that I'll talk about later. But I did secure a job with a think tank in Los Angeles, where I ended up doing research as a research assistant for issues in technology, democracy, and freedom of expression in the media. And then after that, I was really fortunate to do a Fulbright award and to conduct research in Estonia. And since moving back from Estonia, I've been working for Facebook for about the past year and a half, and it's been really exciting. And I hope I can tell you guys a little bit more about it later.
Wow, thank you so much. Next, I would like Whitney to go.
Hi, everyone. So happy to be here. My name's Whitney. And I'm actually excited that I'm going after Anna because my story is a little bit different. And I think one of the lovely things about the panelists today is that we're all going to tell different stories. And I think that that does really reiterate the fact that careers are static, choices can be, multitudes of different directions, and there's no right or wrong way to do this. So I actually went to a small liberal arts college called Vassar College, which is up the river from New York City in Poughkeepsie. And I went into college having no idea what I wanted to do. Actually, one of the reasons why I selected a liberal arts school was because I really wanted to be able to get exposure to a bunch of different things. And Vassar is very committed to not having a core curriculum, not having classes that you're mandated to do, really wanting to get exposure to a lot of different things. But obviously, junior year, senior year rolls around. I had done a bunch of internships actually in the art space and art business because I did sculpture work and art throughout my time at Vassar, but I became very interested in psychology and like how people think, why people make decisions in groups versus by themselves, how they shop, etc. And I had never heard of the market research industry. My mom is actually a graphic designer at an ad agency, so I had a lot of exposure to marketing and advertising and like sort of that part of it, but I didn't really understand that there was so much work that went into the kind of the research behind it. And so I didn't even learn about the career that I'm now in until probably senior year of college. It wasn't something that I was taking classes for, but it was really interesting how relevant it was to the psychology classes that I was taking. I didn't really think I wanted to go to further education to become a psychologist. I really liked research. I really liked hypotheses. I really liked proving and disproving hypotheses and doing that whole process, but I wasn't really sure I wanted to be in a lab or doing that type of research all day. So getting some more exposure to market research was actually kind of a really fortuitous middle ground to some degree between that advertising and agency world that I had been exposed to and really liked, but really kind of pulling in more of that human thinking, the math behind it, the psychology behind it, the scientific process, etc. And so straight out of school, 2 weeks after graduation, which I don't recommend, take a little bit of time. 2 weeks after graduation, I started as a junior analyst at this small company that was really focused on advanced analytic work in the market research space. And so I spent a couple of years there, and that company was actually acquired by my current company, which is called Kantar, which is a giant global research agency, market research agency. But what's been really cool is because that company still exists and was a small subsidiary, again, within this broader Kantar family, I've actually had a very varied career path like within the Kantar family. So I'm still technically working for the same company, but I've had wildly different roles like within the market research space. And now I am a managing director for all of Insights New York and all of our New York and tri-state based clients for Kantar, which is a general management role, still client facing, still focused obviously in the market research space, but wildly differently than some of the analyst and more advanced analytics type of roles that I was doing when I was based at the MAPS part of the company. So a really interesting path still within the same broader space. And I definitely have a lot to say as we have time. We have some great questions and such planned about the focus on kind of like career progression and the next step and like the pressure that you might feel to be thinking about that and to sort of still be sort of staying on like a track or not. And I think it'll be really cool to hear from Anna, to hear from Catherine, just on the differences there and the different choices that you can make, because I certainly had some experiences there, but really interesting that I am where I am. And it's sort of, yes, with the same company, but like in very different roles and taking some different paths along the way.
Thank you so much, Christine. And I would like, it would be great if you can keep it short to 2 minutes. Thank you.
Christine, you're on mute. Or
cannot hear you. We cannot hear you, Christine. Okay.
Sreytom, why don't we move on to the next question and we will send Christine the dial-in information.
Okay, sounds good. You guys have really amazing background from place to place or from within the same company with different role. And I would like to hear more about the career planning process for from everyone. So when I was in college, I was mostly focused on my school, and it really hard for me to stay away or think beyond when is my next exam, what I need to do for the next day. So it was really hard. So I'm curious what she can scholar do can do while they are in school to prepare for the life after college, and I mean without interfering with their academic duty. Um, I would like Whitney to go first. Thank you.
Sure. And I think something that's really important here is a lot of this is based on people that you expose yourselves to, new ideas, new opportunities in classes, that sort of thing. I mean, like, yes, I'm sure that there's a bunch of great internships that you could do that could get you exposure to different industries and help you over the summers, let's say in between your years. I think volunteer work is great because it exposes you to a bunch of different types of people. It probably would create, different groups of people that you can spend time with at campus, everything. So I really think that it's important to, yes, do some things outside of your classwork, but I think that really with all of the vein of how can I expose myself to different people, different ideas, start to get interested in different things. I mean, I was fortunate to be able to take a bunch of different types of classes to sort of like see what I'm interested in, what kinds of things, were really resonating with me, that sort of thing. So I think that I wouldn't do anything just because you think it's the right thing to do or it's going to send you on a particular path. I think that really make sure whatever you do have time for, which is not a ton, that it's really something that you feel like is, again, like giving you exposure to things, opening you to new ideas, helping you to meet new people and kind of like build to some degree a network that could potentially be useful as you really start to think about which paths and which careers you might want to go down.
Thank you. And Anna?
Yeah, definitely. I agree with everything Whitney said. I think I came into college with very specific expectations of what my career should look like, because there's usually a very traditional path for international relations majors. And I think there were a few things that I did in college that exposed me to different possibilities that I think are easy to do in between classes and when you're busy studying. And that can be anything from like reading the news, like making note of things that are really interesting to you, to talking to specific people about the careers that they've pursued. I found it particularly helpful when I was in college to actually talk to my friends at other universities and at other colleges to see if they had different ideas of what their career should look like because of the different coursework or the different core curriculum at their university when compared to mine. I definitely think one thing that's really important when you think about career progression is consulting all the resources at your university. I think, as Whitney referenced, it can be really easy and really tempting to jump into things because you think it's a good opportunity rather than doing research, making sure it's the right use of your time. And so making sure you consult with, for instance, the Center for Public Service, or if you have a career center, or if you have a fellowship center, to make sure that things are a good fit for you. And then I think, given that so many more companies right now, this is such a weird place for the job market with everything going on with the global pandemic, given that so many companies are transitioning to some non-traditional work, doing really in-depth research on the type of lifestyle you want, because you could want a job where you travel a lot. You could want a job with young coworkers to keep you company and to make it fun. And so knowing what you want out of that, I think, will help you pick an industry, because industries have very specific workplace lifestyles that apply to them.
Thank you. Yes, getting exposure to opportunities and utilizing all the resources and network that are available for you are really important, and it's a great way to explore ourselves. I totally relate to that. Since I'm still in that process right now. It's challenging, but it's the way to go. Christine, are you okay to go next?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes, thank you. So can you remind me the question really quick? I was trying to get my headphones earlier.
So if you can start with briefly introduce yourself, your major and what you are doing. And the question would be what can she can scholar do while they are in college to prepare for their life after college.
Okay. Okay, hi again, everyone. I apologize for the mishap. I'm originally from Myanmar, so my story is a little bit different. So as an immigrant who was 14 years old, it was a struggle to fit into the high school life of America. But I went to high school, college, and graduate school here in Maryland at University of Maryland. Initially, I wanted to be a doctor because growing up in Myanmar, I saw a lot of disparities. And I thought helping people was something I want to do with my life. And starting off college, I thought I knew that was exactly what I wanted. I was pre-med, but I realized that I prefer doing more preventative work and talking to people more than curing them. So I changed my major like 5 times. So I ended up with public health, which I absolutely love. And that's what my undergrad and graduate degrees are in. Previously, I've worked with a lot of international companies as an intern or as a full-time job. I study abroad a lot. I was volunteering in Peace Corps Cambodia, so I got to travel Asia a lot as well. But I'm currently working as a senior project coordinator for URC, a global health company that works in healthcare and development in many developing countries. My projects are currently in Africa right now, so I hope to travel there when it's safe again. And I just really appreciate being on this panel because feeling the fear but doing it anyway has been my life's motto. Because everything, I'm a worry wart. I worry so much. I'm always nervous, but I do it anyway because if I don't create opportunities for myself, who would, right? So going into your question, Sreytom, I think that people skills are very important. For me as an immigrant, I didn't have anyone guiding me. My parents didn't know how to help me. I literally had to put myself through research of what college to go to, how to get financial aid, what major to major in. So it's all about putting that initiative out there. If you don't have opportunities, create those opportunities for yourself. So it's crucial that you get out of your comfort zone, learn to make connections. And that's why I'm a big supporter of like students taking advantage of volunteer opportunities, internships, and part-time jobs throughout their undergrad career. And not starting a junior year, starting a freshman year if you can. Like the more experience, the more connections you can make, the better.
Christine, I heard that you have a mentee. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your mentor and mentee experience thing?
Yes, we're still very early in our mentor-mentee stage because this is our first year. My mentee's name is Pisai. I'm very excited to have her here in the US this year. She is applying to Syracuse for architecture program, so we're keeping our fingers crossed that she gets in. It's so amazing to work with Pisai because having lived in Cambodia for 2 years, it kind of brings me back the memories. And not only that, it feels like an extension of that service, right? Just being involved in the community. And having Pisai be my mentee has been such a huge honor because she's such a hardworking girl and she has big dreams. And that reminds me of myself because I love to dream big, and just keep going for it. So it's been a great opportunity.
Thank you so much. I'm glad that you enjoyed the mentor-mentee relationship experience. And freshmen, do a lot of internships and also, create your own opportunity. If you don't have one, ask for any project that you can take initiative on things. So that's the way that you learn and acquire skills that you needed for your career. Anna, you mentioned a little bit about fellowship. Why don't you tell us more, how do you plan for those and how do you actually make it happen for yourself?
Yeah, definitely. I just wanted to start by also shouting out my mentee, Jel, since I think she's on the call. So excited to be her mentor. And also, Christine, I grew up 45 minutes from the University of Maryland. So it's so exciting to know you're from Maryland. Anyways, so I just wanted to call out 2 particular leadership training and fellowship opportunities I had really early in my career. The first being a women's leadership program called I Lived to Lead. And I think that was so essential in teaching me that I wanted to study international relations and in confirming my interest in meeting other strong, empowered women from around the world, because the whole point of that program was to bring together women who are such great collaborators and so great at producing effective dialogue to talk about world issues. And I think going through that process made me realize that it's 1, really important to network, and 2, really essential that you expose yourself to so many different cultures and themes and subjects in your career. But I think the most transformative fellowship experience by far was my Fulbright. And if any of you have the opportunity to apply to a Fulbright, I think you should definitely go for it. For those of you that don't know what the program is, it's basically something sponsored by the United States Department of State, where they send American scholars abroad, and then they bring scholars from other countries to the US. Most of the international Fulbrights are to pursue your graduate degree in the US, but I think there are also opportunities for you to do research at universities in the US as an international scholar. And I went to Estonia, which I think I mentioned earlier, and I did research on e-residency and how it relates to democracy. I won't go into e-residency and what that is because I would talk your guys' ear off, but it's basically a digital public service that the government of Estonia runs. And I think the last thing I'll say about like the importance of a fellowship is so many fellowships lack a lot of rigid structure, like a job. Most jobs you go to from 9 to 5 and you work at your computer and you have a boss and they tell you what to do most of the time when you're early in your career. But fellowships, you're structuring everything. Like a lot of it is independent learning and you're setting yourself up for success. And so it teaches you so many essential skills when it comes to planning and organization and communication that I think are just going to be so critical for a lot of people. And I think in terms of planning for the Fulbright, the most important thing was just knowing that I wanted to do something different and shift my career. And I think fellowships, since they have really open mandates, are a good opportunity to go a different direction with your career if you're feeling a little bit stuck.
Okay. Thank you so much. That was really informative. And yeah, I heard about Fulbright before. Just a quick reminder, like it would be great if each panelist can keep the answer to about 2 or 3 minutes. Just we want to be mindful of time that everybody have in this space.
Yeah, sorry. I'll be quiet for the rest of the time.
It's all good. That's a friendly reminder. So my next question is, how can scholars plan for life after college when they aren't entirely sure who they are or what kind of job are available for them? Like they don't really know like what they really want to do. And I would like Whitney to take on that.
Sure. So I think I'm going to definitely talk up like networking and connecting with a lot of different people. I mean, obviously, like when you leave school, you have to start somewhere. So obviously, you're picking a path and it feels like a huge deal. But I think Anna, and Christine and I can all echo the fact that like you can also make other choices. Like you can try something for a year, you can try something for 2 years, you can get out of the workforce, you can go do research. Like, there's a lot of different paths. So you're going to have to pick something to some degree as you graduate. And obviously, you want to make the best informed decision as you can, but it's not like everything is stuck in stone after that. So I think that if you're not sure, I think that again, it's important to try to talk to a lot of different people. I talked to a colleague of my mom's to try to understand more about the advertising industry and his path there. I've talked to other people at school, leverage the school networks and like the college, career centers and such. Like one of the great things about any university or college is that they really try to leverage like their alumni network as much as possible and can connect you. I know that I do alumni connection interviews all the time, even if just people are saying, hey, I'm thinking of getting into market research, or I was a psych major like you. Can we talk about the kinds of things that you do? Like I'm super happy to always take a little bit of time and just chat with a current student or something. So I think definitely think about the power of your alumni networks and using the career college centers for that. So I guess it's just important to think about, you're going to have to make a call. It doesn't mean that everything is set in stone. I think it's nice to try. I think Christine in particular can speak to the fact that she like went in with an idea, obviously had to switch things around. And Anna just started referencing this, and I can go into a whole spiel on this, so I'm happy to follow up on this later. But I think it is so critical because your college career center is going to very much to think about what's your major and what types of careers or what types of industries can you work in like based on your major. And that's their job and that's what they're supposed to do. I think it's hugely critical to also be thinking about what type of work environment you want to work in, thinking about what the company stands for. How much do they actually have efforts against inclusion and diversity? Is it something that they're just speaking to, or do they actually really care about it? What are they doing with their recruiting processes? How are they creating an inclusive environment within an organization? Do they work for other clients? Like, I mean, my company helps make other Fortune 500 companies more money. Some people really would not be okay with that and would have a sort of an issue with that process and sort of what that means. Do you want to work in teams? Do you want to manage people? Do you want to be a manager yourself? So I think that there's a lot of things that a career center isn't necessarily going to focus on because they're very much more so focused on capabilities and skill set, which is totally important. But I think those are really important things to be thinking about as you're thinking about different directions and paths that you could take.
Okay. Thank you. Christine, do you have anything to add on that?
Yeah, it's just something short and sweet. You don't need to plan everything, right? Planning just literally means that being prepared and knowing your options. So as long as you're always open to newer ideas, different concepts, and if you can research into what your career trajectories are, then I think you're good. I feel like we can plan. I'm a planner by nature, and I plan too much. I have plan A to maybe plan C, plan like F, G, whatever. Like it's not even plan B. So sometimes it's my plan C that works out, right? So you just have to be really open and keep being on the lookout for what opportunities that may come your way without you even noticing.
Wow. Yeah. I never believed that. I mean, when I was in college, I wasn't convinced like about how important it is about networking. But then now that I graduated, I realized I need a lot of work on networking. So get ready on that, freshman, sophomore, junior, senior, you're gonna reach there. I would like to Anna to take on the next questions, which is about informational interviews. What are they and why do you think they are really important for young professionals?
Definitely. I'll keep it nice and short. So informational interviews are basically reaching out to someone that you admire or someone that you want to learn from that might hold a role that you're curious about, to basically pick their brain about what they do and to learn about their field. And I think informational interviews are really common in the private industry and in the public sector. So I think take advantage of them however you can. I always prefer informational interviews and one-on-one settings to networking because I think you get more depth out of them, and you also have the opportunity to speak up, send questions ahead of time, really like get into the nitty-gritty, which you don't necessarily get out of networking sessions where you're talking to like 50 different people in 2 or 3 hours. I'll let Whitney and Christine chime in if they have any additional thoughts.
My only add is just I entirely agree with the power of the one-on-one if you can. It might feel super daunting to reach out to somebody you admire and ask for time for coffee or something, but like really it's only 20 or 30 minutes out of their time. It gives you a chance to prep ahead of time and like really make that impression. Even within my organization, again, because there's so many different people doing different roles here, North America, globally, etc. We have so many opportunities to connect with people that are in different roles. And I think that it's really opened my eyes to a lot of different paths that I could even take now at this point in my career. I could make some additional switches or changes, and all it takes is just like sending an email. Somebody might not have time this week, but they'll probably have time in the next couple of weeks. And yeah, just like a short kind of like a one-on-one session. I totally recommend that too.
Thank you. Yeah, we all know that networking is important, but what I often notice is that everyone seems to assume that, oh, network is all about you talking to the people and potentially you get a job, but networking have you way much more than getting a job. And Christine, what do you think, like, how did your network influence your past, your career path? And, besides getting onto the job, how do you think networking is important in another part of the life?
I really do agree with what everyone has said so far, and networking has something, it's given me something that kind of changed my life. So basically, when I was a junior and senior in undergraduate degree, I worked as an office assistant for the public health program. So it was the program I was attending, but I also got to meet all the staff, professors, and students. And I was friendly and I'm also hardworking. So I think that helped me get noticed by people. I just worked hard, right? With no intention of trying to get a job or anything else, really. I just did my job, but I did it well. So when I was halfway through my senior year, a professor connected with me and they said, Christine, I've seen you do well in class. I've seen you do well at work. So if you want to apply for a master's degree with the School of Public Health at University of Maryland, I think I can provide you with a graduate assistantship if you get in. And graduate assistantship is a scholarship. And of course, I never thought that this opportunity would come to me. I thought I would have to apply to so many different places just to get some kind of financial aid. So I applied and I got in and they gave me the graduate assistantship. So I was a TA as well as an office assistant in my graduate degree. So I worked 20 hours for the school and the rest I just study a lot and I really appreciate the scholarship. But the point of the story is that just because you're networking doesn't mean you're going to get a job. Just because you're networking doesn't mean something's going to happen right away. It happens over many years sometimes. For me, it took me a year and a half of hard work for people to notice me and offer me this opportunity, right? And then not just getting this job, or the assistantship, but the thing is, through that job that I did for them, I also learned to teach. I was put into some scary situations where I was in charge of all my peers who are even older than me. And then I also was, part of my job was to help find internships for the students in the program. And that's how I found my own internships. And then I learned how to make connections with different organizations. So my point is just, be open, go with the flow. I'm very type A, so I plan my life so much, but it never goes that way. But the thing is, if you're open to it, things fall into place in time.
Thank you. Anna, do you have anything to add?
I have a somewhat controversial opinion on networking, which is I don't think networking in general is actually that useful. So apologies if I'm contradicting anything anyone says, but I will promote and believe strongly in networking with people that you already know, if that makes sense. So I wouldn't necessarily advertise going to a random networking event to meet people. And I'm just speaking from personal experience. That's never converted into anything as amazing as it did for Christine. But I do think that making sure you stay connected to your professors and stay connected to your internship supervisors and are constantly emailing them just to check in with them after you no longer interact with them regularly is so important, because they'll write your recommendations for graduate school and they'll put you up for jobs in the future. So I guess that's like strategic networking in a sense. But yeah, that's my take on networking.
Thank you. Whitney?
I was having some trouble with my audio. Is that better, Amanda? Okay,
Yes.
great. I switched
Yes.
headphones. Yeah, I mean, I think I said what I said before. I think it still applies. Like, I have never gone to a cold event or like a larger event. I do believe, and have had a lot of success. Again, like not necessarily just to advance my career, but just to give me some really good perspectives from other people in different paths that they've taken, doing like an industry networking session. I'm part of a women in research group called WIRE, and they have events in a lot of the cities across the country. And it's just a great way for women to connect. They have featured speakers come in, that sort of thing, just to kind of have some common points of interest and things to talk about. So I really enjoy that personally, just because I've gotten to know a bunch of other women in the industry that are also interested in research, but that are also considering different career paths and asking questions and thinking along the way. So I've really appreciated that. But what I said earlier, I think still stands. Like, I just really believe in the one-on-one connection point and coming at it with a specific intention, questions that you might have, really trying to connect in particular with somebody whose job you're interested in or something you want to just know more about, or a person that you really admire, and using that.
Thank you. And for those people who shy and introverts, or for those who are really mindful about other people's space, do you have any recommendation for them in order for them to increase the network, or to build the network if they haven't done so? Yeah, anyone can go about this one.
I'd like to start off first, if that's okay. Being shy and introverted is okay. I was very shy, soft-spoken. I always felt like I was the youngest person in the room. I felt like I was too new to anything to speak up. I didn't have the confidence. But the thing is, you don't always have to talk to every potential connection, like Anna said, right? You just need to be good at detecting and seizing the right opportunity. If you're worried about speaking too much in person, that's okay. You can work on how to introduce yourself briefly and effectively to people, right? You can approach them, introduce yourself so that they're interested in connecting with you, and then maybe ask for their email and politely say you'd like to please contact them at a later date. It's as simple as trying to figure out what works for you.
And
When I get nervous, I find preparation always makes me feel better. So I echo what Christine said. And even if you have a couple of go-to questions or specific questions that you had for that particular person, I feel like that can really take the edge off too. And I think the one-on-one environment is easier. If you are nervous about it, it feels a little bit less overwhelming. But my recommendation is to be prepared, make yourself go into it feeling as confident as you possibly can.
Yeah. Anna, do you have any other thing to add or?
I just have one very specific thing to add. If you do go, I'm from Washington, D.C., so obviously big networking is like the name of the game in the city. If you do go to a big networking event, don't use the food and drink table as a crutch, because I think it's really easy to like hide over by the food and drinks so you don't have to talk to people. And I always tell myself I'm not going to let myself eat or drink at these events, because that way you have to go talk to people.
That's a good one. I always stuck at the food desk though. I need to be cautious next time. Yes, networking can be really challenging and it's sometimes uncomfortable, but I would say from my personal experience, it's really important. And I think the more you practice, the more you get better at it if you are introvert, because I used to be once introvert. I am, but I'm a little bit better than before. And I just feel like, take the chance and be there and know yourself. The more you do it, the more you get used to it. And at the same time, the more you realize what you have to deliver or how you're gonna present yourself to the person that you are talking to. So that's how I, realize over the year. And Whitney was raising a good point about one-on-one. Like introverts, it's easy to get lost in the crowd. So one-on-one is a good start if you want to start. Launching the career is not always beautiful, and there's some rains and fogs along the way. And now I want to talk about rejections. It's a hard topic, but rejection is real and it's happened a lot. And I'm curious to know about how, is it that it's rare and that you get offered a job, like one you apply with, the first one that you apply, you will get a job, and how often do you get rejected and how you handle it, and also, is it normal for a graduate to wait for a while to get the first job? Um, Christine, do you want to start?
Yes. So just to share a quick example, going off of our networking question, I just started an international business course in my MBA for the winter term, and someone introduced themselves as a consultant for Deloitte. And I'm really interested in consulting these days, but I've never met her, but I just messaged her and said, hey, can I please connect with you? I want to learn more about your experience. She didn't respond to me for 2 days, so my confidence was shaking. I was hurting, but she just responded to me this morning, said there was an emergency in her family and she couldn't respond to me. So all is well. But I'm just saying that even at 29 years old, I get very nervous about connecting with people. And rejection is also hard. I applied to at least over 60 jobs before I got my current one. It was discouraging, but now that I'm on the other side of this journey, I realized that it was worth the wait. This job actually aligns with my professional interests, and it was perfect timing since I just started an MBA program too. So the courses I'm learning are kind of applying to the work I'm doing. I'm always rushing around to achieve my goals and dreams, but I realized that with a few years of experience and with some aging, I've realized that patience is key, right? Sometimes you need to go with the flow. You can work hard, yeah, but that doesn't mean you'll get what you want right away, right? Just keep working hard, keep doing your best at creating opportunities for yourself, and the right thing will fall into place at the right time. Just keep trying even when you fail, right?
Whitney, you want to go next?
Yeah, I think so rejection is hard. I mean, there's no way around it. Like, it is not fun to get rejected, even in the smallest way. I guess what I would say is, I think, I'm one of those type of person who, like, when the immediate rejection, you're like, oh my gosh, my entire world is crashing down. My entire confidence is crushed. I'm good at nothing. And you kind of blow this whole thing out of proportion. So I think it's almost, my advice is, I think it's two things. after that, maybe, initial reaction, focus on either asking specific questions or finding out more about specifically what the problem is, because then it's never that like all of you is rejected or every single one of your skill sets is rejected or not sufficient or not qualified. It's usually a couple of specific things, not the right fit for the role, not enough experience, like those types of things. So I think it's really important to kind of ground yourself again, follow up, make sure that you ask those questions. Like, what exactly was it? Is there something that I can do better? Really kind of try to get as much feedback as possible, because then you can ground yourself on focusing on some of those specific things. Oh, I need to improve my interviewing skills. I need to get more experience in this particular area. And then it gives you like a nugget. You have a goal of something to focus on that you can improve upon and that you can like kind of like use to build. I mean, I do think it's so hard when you're in the moment, the stress of figuring out your career, figuring out for jobs. I completely understand. I remember it vividly. But I think, Christine, as you were saying, like when you're on the other side, there is so much learning that you can get out of rejection. And again, I'm not saying it's going to be fun. Like no one takes rejection well, even if they tell you that they're like, cool, calm, and collected. But really important to think about specifically what it is. I need to know that information. I need to be able to hook onto a couple of particular things that I can work on, and then I can use that, to kind of like learn and develop.
Thank you. Anna?
Yeah, so in maybe the spring semester of my senior year, I secured a job with a federal intelligence agency. I thought I was set with my job after college. Maybe like August after graduating, when I was in the middle of my security clearance process, I decided that was not what I wanted to do with my life. And I said no to that job, and I ended up unemployed for 6 more months. So it's totally normal. And I think I want to say that I don't feel like you have to take a job to have a job when you graduate. And I think it's especially hard at American universities where there's a lot of intense conversation between peers, and someone's like, I got this job or I got this job. And you feel a lot of pressure, which Whitney and Christine have already referenced. And I think I felt similar pressure. And because I didn't think critically about taking that job I was offered in my senior year, then I ended up unemployed without a plan for 6 months. So I'll say that. And then I'll also say it's totally normal to be unemployed, and to think about and to get rejected. I got rejected, I'm sure, dozens of times in that 6-month period. The one tip I'll give you guys is I think it's really important to make sure you have a timeline for yourself and a plan for when you're going to start to lower your standards. That sounds bad, but what I mean is that you start with your ideal job. Like I want this job, and I'm going to take a month to apply to that job. And then if you don't get that job, then you have a plan for the next few months when you'll start to cast a wider net and apply to more jobs. Because if you don't have that plan, then you can start to kind of feel lost and not really know where you're going. So I think that would be my biggest piece of advice when it comes to rejection.
Yeah, rejection is real, and it's happening, and it's happened a lot more than you expected. But be positive, be patient, and something will come out as long as you have a plan B so that you won't be lost, and strategies around or strategy around what you want to be doing, and know who you are, especially to study. Before I move on to the next question, Scholar, please drop any questions that you have for our panelists in the group chat, and we will ask them to answer during our Q&A sessions. So as you just graduated, you applied to plenty of jobs, and like Christine said, she's applied at least 60 of them, which is a lot. So, and sometimes when you apply for it, you don't even hear anything back. It just gone away, and then you don't know what to do. And I'm curious about the rules and the strategies around follow up. Like, how should we go about it, and how many days, or how what form of communication should we use to follow up? And I'm curious to know your experience about that. Anna, you want to start first?
Yeah, definitely. Always follow up. It's the bottom line. Don't be afraid to be annoying. You shouldn't even see it as being annoying, to be honest. I think I found that when I don't hear back from people, it's typically because they either haven't seen my application yet, haven't really started the review round for applications, or because they just are in the middle of trying to process how many people they're hiring and making decisions like that. And so I think following up is really important. And I'd also encourage you to get on the phone. I know it can be tempting to just rely on email, but the phone can be so critical for reaching people that might not check their email daily or consistently.
Whitney?
I'm actually actively involved in recruitment for my company right now, and for my team in particular. And I would say, I mean, there's obviously like too much following up. Like, I'm like, you don't need to reach out to somebody every couple of days. I think that there is unfortunately like a little bit of like logistics of processing, obviously, when you have an influx of people that are interested in a position. You have to set up interviews, you have to do phone screens. Like, there's all these elements to the process. But I do think it's important to follow up, because I certainly would notice if via email or, you know, phone call or something, either to my recruiting team or even to my direct team, you know, somebody was just like, hey, I'm really interested in this. Like, I'm following up because I haven't heard from you, and I'm just expressing my enthusiasm and expressing my interest. I mean, they haven't even come in the door yet necessarily to interview. And like, this person is like really already following up to demonstrate that they're interested. So again, I think there's probably, you know, there's too much follow up. I mean, I think that there are, you know, I would definitely say give it a couple of days, give it a week. You know, I think that a good recruiter, a good company, like, should follow up with you and say, hey, this is X YZ where we are in the process. Like, we'll keep you informed. It's definitely not instantaneous. It does take some time to assess different candidates, to interview, that sort of thing. So it is going to be a couple week process typically. But I really do appreciate, you know, somebody just following up with maybe questions that they already have, things that they'd love to get more information on, and just any way that you're demonstrating your enthusiasm, like that would make a really huge impression on somebody like me.
Christine?
For me, there are specific things that I do during an interview before the meeting ends. So first, I would ask, when can I hear back from you about this position, right? And then if they say 3 weeks, then I would make sure to email them on that, like the last few days, like Thursday, Friday of that week, just to follow up. And you don't want to follow up too early because that's annoying, and too late because that means even you're not making yourself a priority. Right. So that's the two questions that I always ask about is when can I hear back from you? And then what email I can contact you? Because sometimes your interviewers are not necessarily the people who you contact with. So ask for that email or phone number. And then so this is also another rejection story, I guess. So I applied for a lot of government jobs coming from Peace Corps. I thought it would help me get in. I did. I had to do like 3 different rounds of interview for so many jobs. And at every final round, I get cut. And so at first I was just being upset. I didn't want to try again anymore. But then I realized I could use this to my advantage. So what I started doing when they tell me, oh, I'm sorry, you did not get the job, I emailed back saying, could you please take a moment to tell me in which areas I can improve on? And oftentimes you'd be surprised how many people are willing to tell you. And even if it's just 1 or 2 things that I need to improve on, that helps me a lot. So I do have a rejection story later, but if there's time during Q&A, I will share that with you. But for now, yeah, this is what I have.
Thank you. These are great. Feedback is really important to like make ourselves better. Even resume, sometimes you might think, oh, I have already asked 3 people to look over my resume and it's good. But who knows, different persons say it differently. They have different perspective. They have different things for you to hear. So take those feedback into considerations and improve yourself. As we are getting closer to our time, is there any final advice that you would like to give to our scholars? Like, you know, what they can do or what they should be thinking right now to prepare for their career in the future. Yeah, anybody can go first for this one.
I mean, I think we've talked a lot about, you know, being open, not thinking that the first role that you get out of school is like your set stone path. I mean, there have been so many pivots over the course of my career, and I didn't always see all of them coming. And some of them are due to people remembering that I was interested in something or wanting to have a conversation. So like, you know, kind of speak to the whole networking thing. But I think I wish that I knew when I was 22, like the volatility of the process and the ups and the downs and the left turns and the right turns and everything. So I'd love to impart that upon other people. And then I think I kind of touched on this earlier, but whenever I talk to you know, Vassar students or people that are, you know, starting to get out, I really do impress upon the fact that I think it took me too long to evaluate like all of the dynamics of a company or a place of work. I think, Anna, you had mentioned lifestyle earlier. How often, like what hours are people working? What, work-life balance, I hate the term work-life balance, but like sort of like, what do people talk about things that they're doing outside of work in their work? Do people have friends within the office? Do you work in teams? Is there a great career trajectory? Is there a good promotion paths? Do people get properly rewarded and acknowledged and compensated? Again, like I'm big push on the inclusion and diversity. I mean, like there are so many companies right now that are trying to hire a diverse workforce and just like do not have the guts behind that to create a truly inclusive environment where everybody can really bring their own experiences, be themselves, bring their backgrounds. And they're trying. No one is not trying to do this, but there's not everyone is succeeding. And so I think that you could get in somewhere and then feel like, oh my gosh, like I really don't feel like I could be myself. I really don't feel like I can talk about some of the elements of who I am and my past and such. And I'm not saying you're going to know that on day one, but I just really stress that I would like people to be thinking about those sorts of things in addition to what my majors are, what types of skill sets I have, what types of capabilities I have. Obviously, that's super critical and important, but I don't think that I even thought about what it meant to like work for clients and how diverse and complicated and different all of different clients are, and like being in client service until I was like a couple of years into that role. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm in a client service role. Like, this is interesting. Like, here's all of these skill sets that, that I've had to develop as a result of that. And that there are roles that don't talk to clients ever. Like, you don't have to deal with that if you don't want to. So I think just really thinking about what your company stands for, what's on their website, what kinds of things are they promoting about themselves? What are they talking about? And I was so focused on the job and my major and like what led to what path, etc. coming out of school. And so it took me a couple of years, honestly, to like really even start to think about those elements and what I wished, that I had been thinking about more intentionally as I was graduating. And it's a tumultuous time. So I understand that you're already, there's a lot in your head. So.
I'll offer 3 concrete pieces of advice to you guys. They're not like conclusive in any way and like a really nice holistic thought like Whitney just offered. But the first thing I'll say is that the reason I have my current job is because 2.5 years ago, when I was about to embark on my Fulbright and move to Estonia, I got a very random LinkedIn message from a recruiter at Facebook asking me if I'd be interested in interviewing for the role. And at that time, I was planning to move to Estonia, so it didn't work. A year later, when my Fulbright was about to end, I followed up with her via LinkedIn to see if that role was still open. And it still was, and they still wanted to hire me. So I say that because I think it's really important you have a good LinkedIn profile. I know that's in different countries and in different industries that can have different viability, but I think in a lot of private company settings, a LinkedIn profile can be really good for that. The second thing I'll say is that I think it's really important that if you're in the social sciences, and this is just personally speaking, I don't think this applies to everyone, but if you're in the social sciences in college, I would really work on your hard technical skills. I think social science degrees can teach you amazing critical thinking and problem solving abilities, but the number of jobs I got rejected from because I didn't know R to do my IR research, or I didn't know how to program in Stata or something like that was a big reasoning for that. And so using college resources to learn that, or even using online courses to learn those technical skills, I think can be really helpful. And the last thing I'll say is that I think a lot of, especially if you're interested in working for a private company, I think a lot of companies these days are moving towards a certification system style interview. So I think basically what that means is I would highly encourage you guys to work on practicing what's called like a case interview or case studies, where you're able to think out hypothetical solutions to hypothetical problems. Because if you can think through that and show companies you have a really thorough and effective thought process and decision-making process, I think that's going to make you a much more compelling candidate. And those are the 3 things that I wanted to offer.
For me, I feel like Whitney and Anna did a wonderful job of sharing everything pretty much you need to know. So I just want to remind you that we were all 21, 22, 23 a while ago. And we all went through the same things you're going through right now. So at 22, I wish I was as hardworking as you are right now. I don't remember attending a women leadership summit when I was 22, you know? So you're already ahead of the game. You're already doing a great job. And remember, all of us here on these 3 days of speakers and panels, we're all your connections now. So if you have any more questions, always reach out to us. And to kind of go off of what Sopek is saying in the chat, what are some key points we should be aware of before accepting job offers? That's kind of what I wanted to talk about earlier as well. So sure, we always look at the salary, the benefits, the distance from our house, you know, the basic things. But what you need to really look for is the trajectory. How much of growth can you receive from that one job? I just started my new job in the last week of September, so it's very new. And I had 2 job offers in the same week, and it took me about 2 weeks to decide because the salary was similar, the organizations are similar, the work is similar, even being in a project in Africa is similar. Like, it was very comparable, but I chose URC because I knew that there was a lot more room for growth. And I really want to go back and work in Asia, especially Cambodia and Myanmar. So I really, really found out about URC when I was working there too. So, you know, it's a full circle. So that's why I chose this. So for you, again, pick what works best for you, what your end goal is, and how it can match it.
Thank you so much, Whitney, Anna, and Christine. These are really amazing, and I do enjoy the panel discussion a lot and learn a lot too. And I hope my fellow scholars feel the same. And just to let you know, your stories, experiences, and advice are really valuable for us as a young professional and as students are still in school. These are really practical. And we still have the Q&A session. We're not done yet, but I just want to thank you beforehand before I hand the floor to Amanda to cover the Q&A session. Amanda, I'm gonna just
Yeah,
so much.
I'm ready. Thank you.
Sreytom.
Just so everybody knows, we're going to squeeze in a 5-minute break before our last session today, but we do still have time for some questions. And I think that there are 2 very timely pandemic related questions from Tarly and Sopek that I would love to get to. And so if Tarly first and then Sopek, you could back to back ask your questions because they're similar, then I think our panelists can respond to both at the same time.
Thank you. So I would like to hear from the panelists because due to the pandemic, there is like very limited offers to students for internship and even on campus jobs. So if you have any advice how we can go through that, I would like to hear it.
I'm just gonna add my question right now. My question was really similar, and because of the pandemic, a lot of the social events have moved remotely. So so I've been to a couple career fair in my school, and it was a lot harder to try to connect with people. So like, I was just wondering what's your suggestion on that and any advice specifically.
I can start off, Amanda. So thank you so much for your questions. Maybe speaking to the Zoom piece and kind of like the social connections, one of the things, so all of these video platforms that existed before the pandemic are now scrambling to make accommodations and updates and modifications just to make it a little bit easier because everyone's on video all day now. One of the things that I think is really huge are breakout rooms or ways to create smaller group discussions as part of a larger forum. So potentially, if there are Zoom meetings or things like that that are being held, if you could either offer a suggestion or see if they're going to do breakout sessions or anything over the course of the session, because then it typically will set you into a smaller group with just a handful of people. That might be a little bit of an easier format than something, where lots of different people are speaking. We've had to do this a lot even within our office. Like, we used to have happy hours where it's perfectly fine that 50 people are all having different smaller conversations all in one space, that doesn't translate to video at all. You can't just have all of us, trying to have a conversation and shouting across the screen with each other. So maybe there's other ways to kind of see if there's going to be additional types of formats where there is maybe a panel and there's certain people speaking and certain people listening. There's a way to ask questions in a chat if you don't feel like, raising your hand on a video and being able to ask questions in front of everyone. So I think that there are some things that are helping with the technology. I do think, though, if it's not a large group gathering, I really do think that the video is actually a really lovely way to do some of the one-on-one connections that we had talked about earlier. And one of the things that you could do is if you find that you're in this big setting and it is kind of overwhelming, jot down a couple of names or even send a personal private chat, because you can do the private chat on the side to say, hey, you and I didn't get a chance to connect. I'd love to follow up later. Maybe that sets you up really well for a LinkedIn invitation later in the day, just to connect with that person directly. Maybe you could even set up some time at a later time, but it can be like a little bit of a lot of people and a little overwhelming. So if there's ways to kind of just like record maybe a couple of people that you'd love to hear more from, find ways to kind of connect with them directly, either on the Zoom platform or via LinkedIn or something like that. It could help establish some of those connections. And then you're kind of on your own terms and you can do it, next week or in a one-on-one session later on. So.
I'd like to talk specifically about the internship. So in the last 2 months alone, I helped like 3 different people find their internships, one at my organization and 2 at others. So just to let you know, what I would suggest is if, for example, let's say you're interested in public health like me. So be aware of what public health organizations are working right now and be aware of what opportunities they may have. So you go to their specific websites, look for job opportunities. If they don't have anything listed, reach out to HR or whoever's emails listed and ask them, hey, I'm a student, I'm willing to work for free. Can I have an internship? And again, all of these are remote. And like I said, I used to work for University of Maryland, so I am very well versed in helping people find jobs or internships. So feel free to connect with me anytime as well. I'd be willing to talk more about this, but it really is a matter of your personal interests and widening your knowledge about what opportunities are out there.
I think I totally agree with what Christine said. I think one thing that I would advise is either finding a way to make your hobby into an internship. I know that sounds really vague and maybe not super helpful, but I think in the future, given that this is such an unusual time, it will stand out to companies or to potential employers if you took this time when there were very few opportunities and maybe like wrote a book or turned one of your other hobbies into a company or like started your own online business or something like that. I think also if you're open to this and if you feel like you have a strong enough connection with your professors, I think setting up a course for self-study or even like a self-directed internship is something that can be really powerful. So I think reaching out, I speaking personally for the social sciences, for instance, Charlie, I don't know what you study, but in international relations, I think it would be really good right now to reach out to professors and say like, hey, I really want to spend the next 2 months of this semester or of the summer studying this. Do you guys have any research funds that you can use to support me? Or would you be willing to mentor me and help me on my self-directed research? And then the last thing I'll say is that I think, I don't know, I can't speak for you guys' universities, but I know my alma mater has put together a fund specifically for students that are struggling to secure internships. I'm not sure if that's an option at universities and colleges you guys attend, but I would maybe look into that in case it is.
Thank you. I know I'm looking forward to 2021 not being unprecedented, but thank you for your advice. Mo, I know we've talked a little bit about LinkedIn. I know that you had a question related to it. Do you mind unmuting and sharing your question?
Yes, thank you. The reason I put a question there was, it was actually brought up a little bit right afterwards about any specific advice about setting up LinkedIn account as an undergrad and or posting resumes as an undergrad. But some of that's been addressed since I actually posted that.
I think having practical specific advice though could be really useful here, because LinkedIn is kind of a big beast. So yes, any kind of specific pieces of advice for setting up that account would be great.
I guess, oh, go ahead,
Sorry.
Anna, please.
Oh, sorry, Winnie. I can go ahead and jump in really quickly since I know I referenced LinkedIn earlier. I would say, one, just think a lot about what your personal branding is. So I like to think of myself as someone who's aspiring to become an expert in technology and democracy and their intersections. And I think being able to piece together all my various internships and job experiences, regardless of how disparate they are, because conducting research in Estonia is very different from doing crisis management at Facebook. I think piecing them together in one coherent narrative can be really helpful for thinking about framing your LinkedIn profile, because then you can show how your different job experiences build upon each other with the job description on LinkedIn. And then I think one thing that I've seen that I don't think personally is a great practice as someone who is like helping to actively recruit for my team is someone who just puts everything on LinkedIn. Like, you shouldn't have every single volunteer experience going back to your first day in high school, but just pick and choose the things that are the most representative of what you want to do and where you're trying to go with your career.
Great, thank you.
What I was going to say specifically for undergrads is, I think I had referenced this earlier, but I actually just had a session this week with somebody who's a current bachelor student who reached out to me via LinkedIn, and his profile was relatively simple. It was just that he was an undergrad student, you know, some of the things that he's majoring in, things that he was interested in, but he's interested in the market research space. And so he actually used LinkedIn to connect to me by looking up, obviously, the alumni network at Vassar College. And so we had a half-an-hour session on Thursday morning, just kind of talking about my company and what I had, it was very similar to this actually, like what my major had been, what kind of my career path was. And, I might not have had time immediately this week, but, that is an access point for an alumni network. And you can get to see what people are doing now, who their connections are, et cetera. So I don't think that undergrads have to have, the perfect platform. And I'm not like a heavy LinkedIn user. I will put that right out there right now. Like, I check it maybe once a week, maybe once every 2 weeks or something like that. And I don't think my profile is perfect either, I would say. But I do think that it is a really great way for undergrads to kind of like put together, the starts of a profile and get connections, especially leveraging their alumni network, and see what everybody else is doing. And then again, even connect for a particular conversation if you want to. So.
Great, thank you.
Barb, I'd love to hand it over to you at this point.
Awesome. Thanks, Amanda. Wow, I think that was really powerful. And the questions were so good. I wanted to just explain also before we close how each of you are involved in She Can, so everyone has a little more context on that. As Christine said, she's a mentor this year for Pisai, who is just in the applying stage. And Anna is a mentor to Jel that she mentioned. And Jel, I want to just say, Jel just got into Babson. She's still in Liberia, and she's such a star.
Hey,
Jel. I'm pretty sure she's on this call. And Anna is also a part of the book club. She's the one who suggested the next book we're reading, which is Bad Feminists. I think it's at the end of the month. So, you guys need to read that book and join Anna and I and some other She Can people. And then Whitney is part of a new program that I'm actually going to talk about at the end of the next session when we're wrapping up. It's called Power to Fly, where we're engaging amazing women like Whitney to be a resource for you all in lots of different ways. And so, she's really officially, it's like formally part of our network without being a mentor. And so she can be accessible if people have questions, just like all of the mentors are. And so we're really lucky to have all three of you in our network and to be able to tap you for things like this, and the scholars to tap you for questions. So yeah, I just kind of want to just give you all a hug, because I think that was really, really a great session. I think everybody got a lot out of it, including me.